I'm Al Cormier. I'm your host for the evening. I want to welcome you to the Historic Archives Room and also point out the Grand Hall has been refurbished. New flooring, and if you've never seen American chestnut wood, that's it. All refinished, stairs going up to the courtroom, and in the courtroom, new lighting and brand new sound system there. So a lot of renovation has taken place. Actually, they shut the place down for 2 months, so I'm just getting back in here myself. And I want to introduce Tom McMorris is our cameraman tonight.
Hi, Tom.
And this people have asked if if it was going to be on the net. I said yes.
Oh yeah.
We'll put it on your page. So if you know people who say, I wish I could have made it, you can watch it on the TV.
Cool.
Just go to McMorris Photo, right?
McMorrisphoto.com.
It'll be there in a few days. So
Yep.
thank you, Tom, for doing that. Hi, Karen.
Hi.
Our speaker tonight is a really interesting person. We talked a lot about his background in Cambridge, and I heard him talking about the water system in Cambridge, and I remember going through that whole event with the system repairing. And but he also has a Grandma Moses connection, and his attic, he said, is full of boxes of Grandma Moses stuff. And if you want to help him sort it, he'll accept the help. But Ken is going to be an interesting speaker. He is not the historian in town, but he is the person the historian goes to when they need information. And he's done some wonderful work with his programs, and also on the internet you have a collection of postcards,
yes,
pictures, things of that sort. So that's a good source for any of you who are looking for old postcards. So, without further ado, Ken, take it away.
All right. Can folks see this okay? Would the lighting help if we dimmed it a bit, or?
Al's in the way.
All right, Al, go.
Everybody can see, we'll leave the lights on. Okay.
Good. Okay, so I'm Ken Gottry, and as I was explaining, I'm Ken Gottry Jr. My father was a historian. If you wanted to know what date something happened and who was married to who, he's the one. I am a raconteur. I love the stories, from which people remember an awful lot more of the history. I am as historically accurate as I can possibly be. I don't make things up, but I take what I learn and I say, you know what? If those people lived here and these people lived here, just like today, I bet they butted heads. And then I kind of find some things. So my wife will also caution you that I've never let facts get in the way of a good story. So sometimes I will start to drift. She's usually in the audience, and when I see her roll her eyes, I know I've gone too far. I'm looking for you. I will also tell you that I get a lot of what I learn from you folks during these presentations. So please chime in, chip in. And I will caution you, I do not do pregnant pauses. If you have something you want to ask or say, just say, hey Ken, okay? If you wait for me to pause, it'll be 9 o'clock tonight, okay? So, with that, I'm going to point out two things. My email address is on there. It is my name, ken@gottry.com. Everybody wants to put an E somewhere in Gottry. There is none. I have a pretty detailed website. It crashed. I'm rebuilding it. It's Gottry, not .com, but it is .net. If you go there, a lot of the things that we've talked about, let's see, it looks like this is what you find today. Here are some of my most recent posts. Across the top, I organize them. If you're looking for something particular, like I want to know something about Content Farm, you can come over and search for it, and it's got my email address on there. I share, you have stuff that say, gee, I wonder where I can unload this, I want to save it, cleaning out mom's attic. That's how I end up with a lot of this stuff. Tom and I went to school together, played baseball together. One of our good friends, Bruce McGee, when he passed away, or his father passed away and they were cleaning out his house, he said, "How would you like this old book? It is one of the 1878 history of Washington County. It's got the gold leaf on it. It's got his father's, grandfather's writing and everything inside it." Bruce said, "Here you go, Ken. I have to find somebody to carry it on." I will also say, as I was looking, I now have 123 boxes like this size in my attic. I started with 20 that came from my parents. My father was village historian, town of Jackson, town of Cambridge, town of White Creek, Masonic Lodge, Embury Methodist Church, and he wrote a book about every one of them. So I started with that. My mother was a Hitchcock, which goes back, becomes the Van Nesses, which are part of the Hoosick patent in 1636. And as Al was saying, my wife is a great-granddaughter of Grandma Moses. So as they were shuffling things along and people passed away, let's give it to Ken, he'll take good care of it. So that's how I end up with things. So with that, I'm going to tell you my vision of the Northern Turnpike. So, yes, I'm going to talk about the road and where it went and all of that, but what fascinated me are all of these things. Like, there in 1799, they were trying to decide, should we have privatization or should we have public roads? And they were trying to decide, well, should we have big business or should we just pay taxes and have big government take it over? They were outsourcing. They didn't just have a company come in and say, we'll build you a turnpike. If you wanted to build 5 miles, you just signed up and built 5 miles of it. And then you put up your own toll booth and collected the money. There were lobbyists because they didn't know what they were doing any more than we do today. Fake news. I have newspaper articles from around 1798 where the Albany newspaper said this, which was a total lie, and the Troy paper said this, which was a total lie, but as a result they started building the turnpike. Voting irregularities. They had a vote and said, we don't want to do that. And then they threw out some votes because they found a 1738 law out of New York City that applied to Italian immigrants, and they said, aha, throw out these votes. So it's been around a while. Yes, public officials, poor infrastructure, especially in the rural areas. I'll show how that is. And the haves and the have-nots. And as much as we love our community, even back then, we were the have-nots. Each community had a few haves, but primarily we're that. I have very strong political beliefs about today. I'm not going to get into any of them. I'm not going to argue one side or the other, but I'm just going to say, anything you see today, I bet you I can find something in these 5 years that tie to it. So, the Revolutionary War ended, and we had not paid our soldiers, and we said, hey soldiers, you want some free land? It's over in a place called Ohio. Try and get there. There aren't any roads, there aren't any railroads, the rivers don't go that way, or they certainly don't go far enough. They hadn't started building canals yet, so they said, all right, we're going to have to start building turnpikes. If you go down to Albany today and you turn onto Route 9, they still call it the Columbia Turnpike. If you get on Route 20 and start heading out, it's still called Western Turnpike. You go a little bit farther, it's still called the Cherry Valley Turnpike. Every one of those roads went east and west. They built one road that went north and south, our road. If you were in New York City and you wanted to get to Canada, you had to go through Cambridge, you had to go through Salem. It was the only way to get there. So, they were trying to figure out how do we finance the building of this roads, and they tried lots of different things. They did have a state lottery around 1790, 1792. Going into storytelling mode. I think they collected a lot of money from these lotteries, but I don't think they ever spent it on what they said they were going to. But I don't have proof, but it feels that way. 1797, they did finally come up with, this is the way we're going to do it. And then 2 years later, they changed their mind. So, there was the beginning of political parties. Okay, George Washington, forget it. John Adams, forget it. As we started to get toward Thomas Jefferson, they started saying, let's have some sort of affiliation. And they are still called the Jeffersonian Republicans. And opposite of what you might think of today, they all wanted big government. And the Federalists, who you would think, Alexander Hamilton, National Bank, build up the big government. No, they wanted privatization. So I always tell kids, if you ever asked a history quiz, it's probably the opposite of what you thought. They did have a lot of disputes about this, and they had a lot of votes on it, and they came up with the Montgomery Charter, which was from 1730, and it had to do with something in New York City, and they threw out a lot of votes. So they had a vote and said, let's have privatization. They threw it out, and they said, let's go with the public. Maybe it was the other way around. But trying to figure out what they should do, they did not want another king. So they were trying to say, we need these roads, but if we have a big government, are we just going to end up with a king out of it? So, all roads, even before the turnpikes were built, there was a road tax. It wasn't dollars. Tom, you're going to have to go take care of Main Street 3 days next month. That's your tax. Well, Tom makes a lot of money, and Tom says, I'm going to have Billy do it for me. And Billy was drinking the night before and didn't bother showing up. Well, I'm going to have Johnny do it. Johnny's got to go out and take care of his farm, and he didn't do it. And all of a sudden, the roads weren't as good as you wanted. Rural, we're used to that. But that was what they were trying to decide, building all of these turnpikes. And again, I'm talking about the east-west turnpikes down around Albany too. So it's not just we country folk that they were doing. But we had a lot of different problems that they did not have, again, just because we're out in the country. So, everybody today says, New York State's terrible, we do this wrong, we do that wrong, we're losing everybody. That's what they were saying back then. Everybody came in to New York or Philadelphia Harbor, and then they had to get east, west, or north, south. They said, well, I don't want to go through New York anymore. They started coming up through Connecticut and around that way. They came over into Philadelphia and came up through Pennsylvania that way. And New York said, we're starting to lose it. We got to do something about it. So they said, let's have some public roads out here. And there is a gentleman, Elkanah Watson. He really wanted turnpikes. I haven't found this, but I suspect he was going to build some and make a lot of money on it. So he put an article in the Albany newspaper that said, Troy's already on board. Troy's going to build all of those east-west turnpikes. Albany, you're going to get nothing. Then he went to Troy, wrote the same article there, except he said, hey, Troy, you know what Albany's doing? And suddenly, Albany started building those east-west turnpikes.
So he used fake news to his benefit. Or bait and switch, the benefit.
Yes. So finally, 1799, they said, we've tried doing the public, we've tried doing the lotteries. We're kind of worried still about a king and everything, because at this same time they were having the French Revolution and getting rid of kings over there. There was worldwide stuff going on. So they said, let's try privatization. They came up with, yes, we're going to go out there and have people build these roads. They're going to build beautiful roads for us. They're not going to charge us that much to use it, but enough to make a good living, and we'll have what we want. So many turnpike corporations came up. The Northern Turnpike really was a corporation. I went and found the incorporation papers of what it said they were going to do, who was the chairman and officers and everything like that. So, day one, they started offering bribes everywhere, saying, Salem, we'd like to build through here, but you know what? I've got somebody who lives about 3 blocks over. How about if we build over there, kind of stuff? And they started doing all kinds of bribes to get where they wanted to. Down in my neck of the woods, if you get down into Buskirk, there's the Buskirk covered bridge. Yeah, Van Buskirk was real good at this. I don't know if he was a good or bad person, but he got them to build that part of the Northern Turnpike right where the road goes straight up like this, rather than going over here at Eagle Bridge where it's nice and flat. Don't understand how he did it, but they did it. So, this is where we got to in April of 1799. The first company of the Northern Turnpike Road, and keep that word in mind, Northern Turnpike, because Google Maps uses it today. And it said they're going to go from Lansingburgh. Being up here, I still call that North Troy. I went down and gave a talk like this in Pittstown and said North Troy. Half the people got up and walked out of the room. They said, we're not North Troy, we're our own community. And it was going to go up to, come through Salem and Cambridge and end up in Granville. And I asked Al about this, and we haven't been able to find it. It says, from the dwelling house of John Faulkner Jr. in the town of Salem, there was going to be a line that would go east over to Rupert in the state of Vermont. Not quite sure where it is, don't think it was ever done. But as I'll show you later, when they did get up to Granville, everybody said, what's so great about Granville? I wanted to get to Canada. They ended up, if you've ever been in Granville and you just drive to the gas station, you're in Vermont, it's that close. You go a little bit farther is where they'd already started building a road down from Canada, so all they had to do was connect them. So I'm thinking something was going on over in Rupert, but I haven't found it yet. So here's where it starts. Down here in Lansingburgh. The reason it starts down there is you can take a boat all the way up the Hudson River until you get to Green Island. Whenever you go into Troy and you turn and go across the Green Island Bridge, and you look off, you see the Green Island power plant. It's there because there are rapids there. Boats couldn't get through it, great for generating electricity, but that's where the Northern Turnpike starts. And then I'm kind of drawing this, it's not quite right, but it ends up in Granville. As you go into Granville, there's the McDonald's, there's whatever the grocery store is right there. There is a marker right there that denotes the end of the turnpike. This was the way people got from New York City to Canada from 1799 until about 1823 when they built a canal. So, I gotta get over here and read this to make sure I touch on all of these points. So, in 1801, there was an ad in the Lansingburgh Gazette, because that's where they started building the road, and they said, we want people to bid on producing a road that goes from Mr. Warner's house, south of John Younglove in the town of Cambridge, and it's going to go to the courthouse in Salem. I haven't found any papers that say, here's what people responded, here's how much, here's who and everything. But in March of 1802, there was an ad in a Salem paper. I think it was still what we call in Cambridge the Washington County Post, where it was still being published up here, but I'd have to check my notes on that to be sure. They wanted to build a bridge across the Battenkill. As you come up 22 by Keys Road, the Battenkill is there. Up until 1927, there used to be what was called by everyone the Red Covered Bridge, and that's where it started back in 1802, because that's where they wanted to get the Turnpike to.
The Rexley one?
No.
No,
Right
steel.
on 22.
Right on 22.
But they called it the old red covered bridge.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, and the reason I found that is, if you look in newspapers from 1927, there was a flood that picked it up and carried it away.
I talked to an elderly gentleman that went through that bridge, and he said they called it the Kissing Bridge
Really?
down Cook Street.
Ooh, I gotta look into that one. That sounds like a good story. One of the other ones I found, and I'm not sure this is a bribe or if this is just documenting what happened, but the Presbyterian congregation in Salem in 1803, I've got the paper that says they received $40 from the directors of the Northern Turnpike Road. And I went back to read it very carefully. It's a lower end of Northern. Turnpike Road in Cambridge is Turnpike Road, but the company really was the Northern Turnpike, and they were really emphasizing that was a north-south one. So, but they received that $40 for damages that were done to their property. It feels like construction for the road was next to it and something caused damage to their property, and therefore they got a settlement of $40.
The library wasn't there, or that piece of land.
Ah, so
You know.
this little red dotted line goes from Lansingburgh up to Granville. That's the Northern Turnpike. There's great water that goes all the way up here into the lake and up into Canada, but it's not wide enough. There's elevation and stuff. 1823, they built the Champlain Canal, and everything that we had moved west. People are always saying, you know, why is Cambridge where it is? Well, we were the livery stop. We on our west end, where the Turnpike Road comes into by our grocery store, that was where we had hotels, livery stables. It was a very convenient stopping point for them. So we lost a lot of our business, but I'll come back to that because we also stole some of that business within Cambridge. But the Champlain Canal, so if you go over to Schuylerville, as you go into Schuylerville, you go across two bridges. One of them's the Hudson River, the other one's the Champlain Canal. If you go up a little bit farther to the Hudson Crossing Park, you see there's a lock still there, and it's there because the boats couldn't go up the hill, so you go in, raises it up, you go to the next one, it raises it up, If you go Route 4 up to Fort Edward, you're driving along the canal, and again you see the locks and everything. They took our livelihood. They moved it that way. But they didn't last for long because the railroad came in. I say roughly 1850, but there's different times in there. But I will point out one key thing from this railroad map. Oh, I don't have the date on it, but it's in the late 1800s. The biggest community on that map is Eagle Bridge. Because the D&H went this way, the Baltimore and Maine went this way, Eagle Bridge is where they joined. That's why Eagle Bridge had 4 hotels, because you had to stop, wait for the train coming the other way, so you stayed over, kind of thing. So, yeah, you look, here's little bitty Albany, and there's huge Eagle Bridge. So, the Turnpike first was how you got north and south, then it was the Champlain Canal, and then it became the railroads.
Are any of those hotels, other than the Eagle Bridge Hotel, still in Eagle Bridge? I know the Eagle Bridge was still there.
No, burned.
Burned.
Yep. Where the post office is.
Yep.
If you go to my website, I did one of these presentations on Eagle Bridge, and I show you the different ones and where they burned and everything. Yeah, there's a lot of that. Or you can shoot me an email and I
Yeah,
can.
my mother grew up there. She loves Eagle Bridge.
Yeah, it was an amazing place because of those huge black lines. So I'll show you a little bit of some of the path that the Turnpike did take. So down here in Lansingburgh, there is a school called the Turnpike Elementary School. As you're coming Route 40 out of Troy, you go past the Oakwood Cemetery, you get up where the water plant is, and you kind of make that curve and everything. They always have a big sign there for a fundraiser, and it always says funds are being raised for the Turnpike Elementary School. So I went down, and sure enough, there is a road down there still called Northern Turnpike, and it is still the Turnpike Elementary School. People have told me it's not quite the same, that they built something different or renamed something, but that's the area. You can go down there. I can show you the exact road that, as you're coming Route 40 up this way, and there's the Spiegeltown Fire Department here and the bar and restaurant there, and there's a road that comes up from this side. That's where the Turnpike came up. It started out going uphill. It's like these horses had to be tired. Maybe that was their way of saying, we can have lots of rest stops along the way and make money off it.
It's Oil Mill Hill.
Oh, is it?
Oil Mill Hill.
Okay. So when you get into Spiegeltown, there is the curve, and right on the corner is a marker. Every mile from Lansingburgh to Granville, they put up a marker, just like we do today on the thruway. Except they made them pretty elaborate, and this point in Spiegeltown is exactly 3 miles from where the Turnpike started. And a lot of these markers either still exist, which I'll show some pictures, or they're in historical societies like this one is. Here's my favorite story of all of this. When you get into Melrose, we, my generation, we just kept going up Route 40 because we wanted to get up there to Scatticook or whatever. But the road used to turn and go this way. I call it the back road. My mom and dad still refer to it as the main road. And then right here today, you go up this way and around that way or down this way and get stuck. But it used to go right straight across there. because this used to be the Tom Hannock Creek. It's a good place to put the turnpike. When you get into Pittstown, it's County Route 110, Tom Hannock Road, the reservoir's over that way, Town Hall is there. When you come here and you turn this way, and it takes you up to Route 67 right in Johnsonville. I went to Google Maps today. They still mark that as Northern Turnpike. A lot of this I got when talking to the people at the Pittstown Historical Society. That one is 16 miles. This is the 3-mile one. One of these was a stepping stone in a farm in Connecticut, so that as you went from your house into the garage, you didn't want to get dirty, you stepped on the back of this. They did some excavation about 20 or 30 years ago, turned it over, kind of expecting to see a grave marker. And they said, what the hell is Turnpike? Did some research and they ended up with it. This is a house, I'm not too familiar with it. It's along Route 7, what they officially call Ramerton. I'm not quite sure, but they say it was a toll house. In Cambridge, as you come down over Oak Hill, right at the bottom was where another one of these toll booths was supposed to be. Because when you said you wanted to bid on producing part of the turnpike, you bid on 5 miles. Well, that's where you put your toll booth. And then farmers in the middle had to work out a deal with you that says, I want to get into the village all the time. Can I have some sort of a special pass? They didn't have the easy pass thing, but they had a way of giving them something.
Lucky them.
Okay. This is where we get closer to my home, where I know a little bit more about the story, and I don't understand it. But the turnpike did not go Route 67. It went over through West Hoosick and those two name roads, like something Cassidy and something.
Cassidy.
Yeah, I can't remember. I'm gonna get it wrong, but it comes up this way. So the Dutch Reformed Church is here on the corner, and then it goes across here where in 1799, Van Buskirk said, I'm going to let you cross here. Before they put the marker up for the Buskirk Bridge, there was a marker there that said this is where the Buskirk ferry was. They used to put these stagecoaches, evidently, on some sort of a raft and take it across. Really? Really? But that's not the crazy part. Once you go across the Buskirk Bridge, you see what here is called Stage Road. It was Stagecoach Road in my day. It is literally uphill. You're like, okay, these horses carrying all these people, and these people just trying to get to Canada. It's like, really? That's where you want to go? In 1820 something, this little community was called King's Mill. Again, my wife is Grandma Moses' great-granddaughter. They're all King family descendants. That's where that community was named King's Mill. After them, it was where all of these rivers came together, and they put a bridge across there. Somehow or other, it got named Eagle Bridge. And all of a sudden the turnpike said, let's go someplace different. Rather than go up Oak Hill, let's go around it. And now that's why we have Turnpike Road over there. It was not part of the original turnpike. I'm not exactly sure when it changed, but when you get up to the top of this hill, There's a farmhouse and they've got a sign on the side of it. It's not just a mere home, it's the old homestead or something like that, because that's what it was called back then. But Eagle Bridge stole all the business from Buskirk around that time. And now we're going to get a little bit more, and we didn't want to pay the tolls. That's as simple as it can get. A shun pike, you are shunning the toll. You're trying to get away without doing it. So if I can just go around the toll booth, I'm all set. Down in White Creek, along the Turnpike Road, which when it gets up into Cambridge, it's where our grocery store is now, and Levin's on the corner there. That's Turnpike Road. There is a marker. This one is still down there. It's where the checkered house was. Grandma Moses painted it 10,000 times or something. But for some reason, we put fancy stone around ours, which I thought was pretty nice. I went down and showed this in Pittstown. Yeah, who do you think you guys are? We just have these little marble things and you have to do that. So somehow Cambridge thought we were pretty special and wanted to make our signs a little bit better. But here's what's important to me is right here where the Amish have their place, that road is called the White Creek Shunpike Road. Because somehow if you keep going up here, you're gonna hit a toll booth. Not sure where it is, but we can head over that way. Bonnie? Hood? Is Bonnie here? No, okay. She's doing she lives on what's part of the Shunpike, and I know they're doing something at whatever the name of her place is, Diana Hondoa.
Oh, Diawanda.
Yeah. They're doing something up there because I'll show you, I think they were part of that Shunpike. It's gonna take me a couple pictures to get there. But,
Ken,
yeah,
if you were to use the shun pike as opposed to the turnpike or
yes.
the other pike, who maintained it? Was it the same condition of, the paved road?
I've not found that there was any official maintenance of these roads. It was just, if we take care of it, we don't have to pay money. Yeah, but you gotta pay money to take care of the road. So I don't understand how it is. There's nothing official about these, but all the maps still call them shunpikes. So
They weren't paved roads, were
none of this was paved. Some of it was plank road. There was actually a part of it, I can't remember if it was part of ours or one of the other ones, that was called Plank Road. It still is today. So as I'm going up 22, there's the Cambridge Livestock Auction Barn. Right across the street, there is that marker. It used to be closer to the road until the snowplow hit it, and then the people came out and put it up, and then the snowplow pushed on it over the years, but they take real nice care of it. But it doesn't have any of the stones around it. Not sure why, but if you ever want to know, from there, I think it says you're 23 miles from Lansingburgh. But over here, going up 313, there is a road on the map in Shushan called Shunpike Road, and I'll show you how I think they connected. So, going back down, so we're south of Cambridge, we're down by the Amish area, we come across the White Creek Shunpike, we get onto Route 22 just below Cambridge Bus Garage, go up, and then we go up 313 and we go to Plains Road. The old mushroom farm is there. And from there, let me see if I can do this. So I'm on 313, I come across this way, go up Plains Road, go past Fitch Hatchery Road, the Cambridge Airport is here. Oh, I'm sorry, the Cambridge Airport is down here, and it dead ends in Fish Hatchery Road. But if you take a map and draw a dotted line, you end up on the Turnpike Road up in Shushan. That's where I think it used to go. So now you're up in Shushan, where this goes over toward U-Shacks and the bridge. If you go up the Turnpike, it ends up dead-ending right into County Route 61, where 61, if you go this way, is the Shushan Covered Bridge area. You come this way, you come down by Burger Den, but it dead ends there. But if I keep drawing a nice dotted line there, like, why the hell does Stanton Road do that zigzag? That's what Bonnie and I have been talking about, and she's like, she's up here someplace because we think the Turnpike went all the way up there. The goal is you don't want to come back onto the Turnpike until you're past the toll booth. Trying to do the math of where things were and adding 5 miles and figuring out who's where. If I were a real historian, I would do that, but I'm focusing on the stories.
How much was the toll?
I don't have it here, but I do have it someplace, and it was by axle and whether you were driving your cattle or sheep or whatever. It didn't seem exorbitant, like 5 cents for your flock of sheep or something, but I can't remember. But I bet they made it on the stagecoaches going through, would be my
Every
guess.
5 miles.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that could add
Well, that
up.
could add up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, as you're going up 22, you go by Lake Lauderdale, you haven't quite gotten to Burger Den yet. The Turnpike didn't go this way. 22 did not go that way. It went and took that road here, curved this way along Ackley Road, and came back in up there. And the way we know it is right there is the most beautiful marker of any of them along the Turnpike. 31 miles from there, if you follow the old Turnpike, would get you back to Lansingburgh. It's still there today. As you drive down 22, you can see the 2 Ackley homestead houses here. Right next to it, you'll see that. They take gorgeous care of it.
You know, the Ackley land goes all the way over to Stanton Road,
Oh, really?
and that may be why
Okay,
Turnpike continued there.
that would make sense. See, I knew. You make up as good stories as I do. There is a place, and I remember it as a kid, and I never could quite remember the name of it. I called it Welkedron. It's on 22. I think I say below the trooper barracks, but I think it's the sheriff's barracks now. And
Who owns that,
there is
Karen? Well, it has Sheldon Farm.
one of these. Oh, that was one of the horse stops along the way. That was an inn. That was a rest area that people went to. Here, Brook Lane, pretty much across from the fire station.
Okay.
You see that one sitting out on the lawn. Oh, I guess that's just a close-up of it. So now you're 36 miles away. So if I were to walk from there down to Ackley Road, I would have walked 5 miles on the Turnpike. Some more around here, and you folks probably know these better than I do. On 22, there is 38 Mile Post. It's north of Salem. 39 is up there. 40, I kind of can picture that house, but I'm not quite sure where it is. Well, once I get north of Salem, I'm a Cambridge boy, but it is 40 miles from there. And this is the end of the Turnpike. Again, if you go up 22 to Granville, there's the McDonald's, there is the grocery store parking lot. Still sitting right out there is something that says this is our 53 miles from Lansingburgh. That's the end of where the Turnpike was. And that's the end of what I have to say. So, yes.
What was the urgency to go, build this to go to Canada, and you can aim it to Canada, come back south?
There's a lot about who went which way and why on these things, because around the Revolutionary War, all the loyalists started heading up that way. So I'm not really sure how far down they came. Going back before the Revolutionary War, where it was the French and Indian War and England won, well, nobody knew it. So the Indians were still killing people and the French were still shooting people. So I haven't traced it back there, but that's a good question about where they go. I always focus on, if you're a hot shot out of New York City and you want to get to Canada, you got to come through my hometown. So,
But none of these mention the distance to where you're going.
Right.
Unless you're headed south.
yes. Right, yeah. And I don't know if it was just a way to prove that you had built 5 miles, so that someday I want to go out and see if they're really a mile apart. Somebody said, I'm going to build 5 miles, and it ends up being 3.5.
Why did they choose Lansingburgh? I didn't, maybe I missed that part.
You could come up the Hudson River from
Oh.
New York City, and when you get to Troy, it's still a river.
Yeah,
But in Troy, as you go across the Green Island Bridge and you look, Green Island has a power plant there. There's rapids and a waterfall, and a boat
in the
can't get through.
Hudson River.
In the Hudson River.
Okay.
You cannot go any farther
Oh, I
north
see. Right,
on it. That's when they said, well, let's just build a canal a
right.
little to the side of it.
But that's where Lansingburgh was.
Yes.
Is.
Yes, that's where it started. If you go, I think it's maybe 2nd Ave, where you're actually driving right along the Hudson River,
Yeah.
coming out of Troy rather than going
Yeah.
up Route 40.
Right.
And you're almost touching the river, and they have all those grand houses on this side.
Yeah.
That's where I think all of this started.
Ah,
That's just a guess, I haven't proved that, but
So they don't have any locks south of,
I don't know where they start.
South of where?
south of Lansingburgh?
No, it's,
No, you
No.
can,
it's the whole river's navigable.
It's all river to there, but I'm not sure from Lansingburgh up to Schuylerville
how many locks?
Oh, yeah, there's.
where the canal is and everything.
Guy comes up.
I just know when I walk into Schuylerville, I know where the canal is and I know
Yeah,
where the locks
there's
are.
locks down by Stillwater.
Yeah.
Oh, right, that's right.
there.
Stillwater.
And, but
Oh,
the
yeah.
Hudson River is navigable all the way to the dam in Green Island.
Okay.
Did
So
they have
that's why.
Yeah.
All right.
In Green Island,
Oh, yeah.
so,
And it's pretty deep, you have fairly deep water ships that come to the port of Albany.
yeah,
No, it's a navigable river.
it still is, yes,
And
yeah.
the straight bass only go to the dam in Troy too.
Dickie's one of my Cambridge buddies, so he comes along to hackle me every now and then.
I have a question on, when was the Tom Hannock expanded? What time?
I did a presentation on it because I had the newspaper articles. I think it was in the early 1900s. But I've got the thing that shows where all the sluice ways and all of that was. Just somehow somebody gave me a newspaper about it, so.
And did they bury any farms?
That one that I
One, yeah.
showed is the only one that, the people from Pittstown all nodded their heads, so I was on the right track, but they didn't offer any other stories.
You know, my brother had a farm in Valley Falls that looked down to the Hannock Reservoir. And I'm trying to remember when you went there, whether there was a bridge. You sort of showed a road back there that cut across there out of like Melrose or somewhere where you would go right.
Oh, that goes over
That-
eventually
yeah.
into.
Just that, yeah, that,
Melrose.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Melrose, yeah. And you'd cross over there
yeah.
and
But you
build
go
this.
around it now.
Today, you come around this way, you get to one of these roads, and if you go on Google Maps, it's very obvious that, oh yes, you have to go up and around and like this to get over to Tom Hannock, or
He was
Pittstown.
probably a little farther up from that Melrose.
He was
than
farther
I
up
think.
then.
He might have been closer to,
There's another river in Valley's Falls. What river was that? That goes.
who's,
Oh, the
That's the
Hoosick
Hoosick.
River.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, get me going on rivers, because Cambridge having the owl kill and Cambridge being the Indians and all of that research, Lake Lauderdale, owl kill comes out of the bottom of that, flows down through the village of Cambridge where we've got our pretty green walking bridge, goes all the way down to Eagle Bridge where it runs into the Hoosick, which goes all the way over until it runs into the Hudson, and that's where, what's the name of the Knickerbocker Mansion over there,
yeah.
and all of the Indian raids and everything. That's how our Indians got over there.
I
That's
think
in
your
Stafford.
brother
Do
was in Valley Falls. It's
Yeah,
right near
it's right here.
Stafford.
But-
So,
Yeah.
The
I think she was
Walloomsac,
up a little further north, looking down on that.
Gotcha.
with the Walloomsac, you can come out of Vermont, get to Eagle Bridge, get on the Hoosick, get to Stillwater, get to the Hoosick, or to the Hudson, go down the Hudson. Now all of a sudden, that's how they would use the waterways back then. I think. The map makes it look that way to me.
The other questions? Don't go away, because I'm sorry. Go ahead.
In the winter, did they shut that road down? Did they maintain power?
Which road?
The whole turnpike from Lansingburgh up to,
They did not take good care of it. In Cambridge, they did. Around the Salem area, I've found evidence they didn't do as well. I don't know that it was in disrepair, but there were several articles about, hey, we're looking for somebody to take care of this and stuff. And it was all that privatization, like, well, we can just have a road tax and let's have the government do it, and then you don't pay your tax, or you get someone else to do it and they've got to do farming and it's not taken care of, or you try to sub it out. They had a lot of outsourcing. Hey, I built it, I'm going to collect the tolls, would you like to take care of it? I haven't pieced together all of those, but there are a lot of those nuggets that roads were not well cared for.
so they couldn't use it in the winter?
That's an interesting question about what time of year they did it, because they certainly could not go up and down some of these hills on a stagecoach in the bad weather.
Life was a lot slower back
Yeah.
then, in the winter, you know. And if you were in Lansingburgh, why would you want to go to Canada?
So,
Could I ride my horse pretty close to the turnpike? Without paying?
I don't know, yes,
Did you come across General John Williams? He was such a wheeler and dealer. Is it negotiations to start it, or?
The name does sound familiar, and yes, I have a ton of material besides what's on here, so I'll have to do some digging, but,
Yeah, he was on the board of directors.
oh, okay. All right, yeah, that's how Van Buskirk got things, he was on the board, so.
Well, don't go away. I have, first of all, let's thank him again for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.